and welcome back to the channel. My name is Katie, and if you saw the title of today's video, gonna give you a warning up front. These videos are gonna be dark in nature. I think that's part of why I was like, I have to wear a bright yellow dress to try to even out the energy. And anybody who's followed me for a long time, you guys know this is stuff that I have been screaming about for years, and I've actually done some active changes on YouTube to help things like this on my first channel. However, it's topics that I will lightly talk about, but I also don't want to focus a whole lot on, only in the sense of, again, it's very dark. And but these are topics that need to be talked about, and I think at this point, it's like nobody is surprised. I would be surprised if anybody is surprised. So what are we talking about? So you guys know I've been putting out some videos lately. I'm not quite sure. Sometimes I film stuff, all at once. I'm not sure when things will go up, but there's a lot coming out right now about Amber Heard and secret cuddle parties. Cuddle parties are where rich and famous people go, and they can be physically intimate with people, and many times they do that in a way that is very hurtful. They use R-word behavior where they force intimacy on people, or they can force intimacy on children. And sometimes in that, human beings are bought and sold. This is real. I know a lot of you watching, again, you've followed me, you've heard me talk about this. In fact, I always talk about in the opening of these videos, I say, we're force-fed Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, but we hear nothing about Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeff, and Airplane in a black book. So it's all stupid to me. So this literally is the same theme. So basically, what we're looking at is lots and lots of information is coming out, but there's one thing that I find very interesting. Mainstream media isn't covering any of this. They are not covering any of the past that Amber Heard might have that's very, very dark, involving these cuddle parties with big players like Cara Delevingne, Elon Musk, all of these people that we know about. And now what I do find interesting is, even though the media isn't talking about that, guess who they are talking about in an intimate manner that's kind of inappropriate? Johnny Depp. And I feel like what they're doing is they are counteracting the information that's coming out to try to once again sway that Johnny is the bad guy. Now, in that being said, I do want to say this. On this channel, I don't take a side in the sense of I weigh information fairly, or I try to, fairly and objectively, and then I give that to you guys. I'm not going to blindly take a side, but there is one side I'm typically never on, and that's the mainstream media. And it's because they lie to us all the time. For instance, if you have someone in your life that constantly lies to you or does A-word behavior or gaslights you, are you going to believe them? Are you going to want to be around that person? That's how I look at the mainstream media at this point. So if the mainstream media is saying something or spinning a consistent narrative, I typically tend not to believe it. But with that being said, Johnny is still a major player in Hollywood. And is it it's in the realm, it's in a huge realm of possibility that he's involved in this stuff too. So what am I talking about? What am I referring to? Apparently, this is the article that came out, and we're going to dive into it. Christina Ricci says that Johnny Depp talked to her about intimacy in a way that's not appropriate. Now, the way Christina talks about it, it's actually an endearing thing. I'm not saying it is, by the way. I'm explaining what I've seen, right? And then I'll show you guys in a second and what she says about it. However, it does, the way the article is written and the way that it's out there, it very much concerns me that anybody was talking to her as a child about any of these things, because that's not appropriate. However, we also have to take into consideration the time. This was in the 90s, and in the 90s, we didn't understand some of those lines of appropriateness like we do today. And I'm going to explain all that, because I'll have people go, oh, that's horse crap, especially the younger generations. And to the younger generations who weren't there, they have no clue. But they also don't know a world where you just get bullied and you just keep going and have to deal with it, and you use dark humor. We didn't have anywhere to go. There were no outlets. What, you want to call the news station because you were bullied that day? You want to call the radio station? That's what we could do, and nobody took your call. We didn't have social media. We didn't get attention, and we didn't get therapy. So anyways, I'm going to dive into this, but I wanted to give that introduction because these are going to be some dark topics, but I want to give some of my some perspective you might not hear anywhere else. And if you like content like this, guys, I love to just look at everything in the mainstream news, break it down for you guys, and if it's appropriate, we giggle and just have a lot of fun and how stupid it all is. So if you want to be a part of that, would love to have you. Make sure and subscribe, hit that notification bell. Let's dive in and see what she said. This is from People, and it says, Christina Ricci recalls how Johnny Depp explained to her what the LGBT was as a child. It says, Johnny Depp was like, it's when a man wants to have intimacy with a man and when a woman wants to have intimacy with a woman, recalled Christina Ricci. So let's go into this. It says, years before they starred together on screen, Christina Ricci learned an important life lesson from Johnny Depp. The actress, 22, recently opened up about discovering what the LGBT was from Depp, 59, over a phone call when she was 9 years old, while filming 1990s Mermaids alongside Cher and Depp's then girlfriend, Winona Ryder. And it says, there was something going on set, and someone was not being nice to someone else. And they were like, oh, well, he might be scared of the LGBT. It's a word for that. Ricci told Andy Cohen during a phone call for his Sirius XM show this week. And I was like, well, I don't understand what that is. And I was in Winona's trailer, and she was like, I don't know how to explain it. So she put me on the phone with Johnny, and Johnny explained it to me, the actress recalls. And it says, according to Ricci, Depp explained it in the simplest of terms and very matter of fact. He was like, it's when a man wants to have intimacy with a man, and a woman wants to have intimacy physically with a woman. And I was like, okay, she said. I love it that Winona Ryder had to put you on the phone with Johnny Depp to get that story, that she couldn't spit it out in the same way. Or, I mean, you've got Cher in the next jailer joke. That's actually pretty funny. I know. We should have run right over there, says yes, just go to the source, right? Cher is like the icon there. Though Depp and Ricci first met when she was a child, they went on to star together in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas in 98, Sleepy Hollow 99, and The Man Who Cried in 2000. The latter marked Ricci's first intimacy scene, which she had with Depp. And as she told ABC News in 2000, I've known Johnny for a long time. He's protective of me as an older brother, and it's weird to think of him being intimate with me. She says, so we know enough about each other to laugh at it. He said it was like we were rooting around together like pigs. Ew! Gross. Sorry, I'm somebody who's on the spectrum who doesn't need or have a lot of intimacy at all. So when I see that, it's great. I don't know, the whole thing's kind of gross to me. But, you know, I'm only 38. Maybe I'll grow up one day. According to Ricci, who also played Depp's love interest in Sleepy Hollow, a decision was made early in the production of The Man Who Cried that Johnny and I would never be without articles of clothing, because in gypsy culture, women are forbidden to not have clothing on. So, hey, so let's dive into this. So when we hear it back, right, it sounds fairly-ish innocent. I have a few things to say about this, though, so let's dive in. First of all, I think it's very interesting, again, with all of this information coming out about Amber, all of a sudden the media seems to be concerned with some type of morality when it comes to intimacy. Like they haven't been parading around these horrible psychopath billionaires and people connected to them in Hollywood, having us believe we should worship these people that are doing all of these awful things behind the scenes. So let's talk about Johnny for a second. It sounds like Johnny just very quickly educated her on this is what it is. Now, this is the thing that I want to talk about. Nobody should be talking about that subject with child, period. That is for parents to talk to their children about. Anything that has to do in the realm of intimacy, that is for your parents. So we can sit and argue. It's inappropriate for him to say it's when a man wants to have blank with a man. That is not something, like, I would now, I might say, like, if I were to talk to a child, if I had to educate a child, if I were in that position, which I would get the parents involved, because again, that's a parent's job. And it's not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with LGBT. It's not about that. It's about the fact, it's about the specific physical intimacy part. I don't want to introduce children to that, period. That's not something I feel like anybody should introduce a child to unless you're their parent and it's done in the right way. Now, with that being said, do I think this is necessarily P-word behavior? P as in P and then a R-E-D. So a P and then a red and then a Tory. Do I think that? No. And I'll tell you why. Because it was a very different time. Now, back then, yes, like as a child, I grew up. You don't touch the swimsuit parts. There were certain things that you were taught, correct? And it's not, and there were those pervasive themes in society. But here's the thing. We were also in a time where we had two dichotomies going on in the early 90s. We had the extreme Christian right, and then we had more normal-ish liberals who were like, hey, the LGBT aren't bad people. That's kind of a lot of how the 90s was. And in that, there was some gray areas. So the way that we looked at physical intimacy, right? You looked at it through the lens of extreme religion or people who were leaving religion. And the way that religion looks at it as well is very toxic. So the lines got very, very blurred. You also have to understand that this was a time we had no social media. This was a time as a people, our voices really didn't have much power unless we were voting. Or again, what did you do? You called the news stations, and the news stations typically did not care. And why? They're owned by big media, even in the smaller markets. That's how that works. So I want to explain how much the lines were blurred. It was once a week on the newsstand. You saw, like the Enquirer, you'd see these newspapers as you're going out. So as a child, you're going through the checkout line, right? Once a week, you would see R. Kelly urinates on a child for intimacy pleasure. And it was more of a joke. You heard nonstop that Michael Jackson did X, Y, and Z. And nothing ever happened to these people. They were still in power. With Michael, those jokes about children went on until, they went on for, 25 years? Longer, 25 or 30 years before he actually went to trial for anything. And even though he was claimed innocent, some of those people have now come forward and said, no, he actually did hurt me. Now, I'm not here to say what's true and what's what. I always really liked Michael Jackson. I feel like growing up, he was an artist. I feel like he was one of the last artists that when he performed, it felt magical and you felt connected to something beyond yourself. Does not mean he cannot be a P word. But I'm just saying I never picked up that sense, but that's the thing, guys. Many times you don't with people like that. So that doesn't necessarily mean anything. I feel like one of the last big superstars we've ever had was Britney Spears. She has a way of performing that just feels like magic. Not to the extent that Michael does, but I don't think anybody's where Michael is. Like Michael, Whitney, Mariah back in the day, right? Michael and Whitney were my favorites. They still are. And Whitney's nuts. I love Whitney. So anyway, I wanted to talk about that because back then, the lines were very, very blurred with stuff like that. So for Johnny to explain things in 1990 to a 9-year-old Christina Ricci like this is how it would have been looked at. It would have been looked at evil because church. But otherwise, it would be more looked at as educational. We can argue whether or not Johnny should ever be educating a child on that if he's not their parent. My argument is no. But I'm saying, as somebody who grew up in the 90s, to me, this is nothing. This is very mild, and I think he was just trying to quickly explain it to her. You also have to understand, this was a time where being LGBT, you could not talk about it. It was not safe. People would end you. This was a very big deal. And Hollywood was one of the only places where people like this could be, and it was more of a safer situation. But Hollywood is also horrific. So as much as Hollywood has embraced these, the LGBT, which is wonderful, they also embrace other things they shouldn't, like hurting children. Please infer everything that I'm saying. So, by the way, and I'm not trying to conflate the two. I would never conflate. Most of my good friends actually, I'm sitting here thinking about it. All my close girlfriends, all my close friends are somewhere on the LGBT spectrum. And funny enough, I am a little bit, only in the sense of, but for me, it's an absence of, right? I have to really like you. There's a certain word for that. I forget what it is. And I just rarely am attracted to people, unfortunately. I love y'all, but human beings don't do it for me. And I'm sure I meet an alien and I wouldn't have anything either. I'm just a little weird. But I thought, because we cover so much negativity about Amber Heard and there is more and more and more to cover, here's a story that looks really bad for Johnny. And really, it seems pretty mild and harmless considering the time. And here's the thing, Christina Ricci went on to say, we're great friends, we started movies, we even did blank scenes, and he's always only protected me. Now, does that mean later she might not come out and say, hey, I repressed some stuff and some things are coming up? No. But at least for right now, this is what it seems like. So once again, it's like, and this is what I feel like is happening. I feel like the mainstream media is doing everything they can to paint Johnny in the absolute most disgusting, worst possible light that they can. That's what all this looks like to me. And the question you have to ask yourself is why? Why are they spending this much time and energy trying to make Johnny look like this absolutely horrible person? And I think it's because they need to continue this narrative about Amber Heard and her fake Me Too allegations, because they need to continue ways and finding ways to be able to divide and conquer us. Because remember, when we're fighting each other over this stuff, the psychopaths at the top win. They put things in place to control us. They do other things behind the scenes to distract. This is how they work. But I'm really tired of the mainstream media trying to paint Johnny in the worst possible light. And then when you dig into it, it's like, oh, it wasn't that bad. And I'm not saying this is the worst part. Johnny's not innocent. I'm not saying he's not done anything. We know that he and Amber A-worded each other, right? But it's just this constant, to me, it's like, it's similar to, and I'm not taking a political side. I don't like any of them. But it's similar to when I saw the media rail on Trump all the time. Now, here's the thing. There are things to rail on. I'm not saying there aren't. But I felt like 70, 80% of the time I'd go see what the media says, and I'm like, oh, you took that out of context. That was nothing. And it made a lot of people end up voting for Trump simply because they don't trust the mainstream media. Does that make sense? That's how I saw a lot of that going down. Again, I'm not taking a side. I'm just showing, I'm explaining what I saw. So when I see the media rail and rail and rail at Johnny when he's consistently either proven to be innocent or he's been forthright and he's been open and honest as much as we can know, right? It makes me discount everything negative, which isn't good because you want to weigh information objectively, like I've talked about. So I don't know. This is what I think about this story, but I want to know what you guys think. What do you think? Do you think Johnny's some big P word, or do you think this was completely harmless given the times? And what do you think? Do you think this is a subject that only parents should be talking to their children about? I go back and forth. I know there's stuff about education in schools and things, and I think that education should go hand in hand with when you are old enough and your bodies are developing, you're in that place, right? But then you can argue, well, we see romance, we see things in the mainstream media all the time, right? And I agree with that, but it's about, but in terms of educational, this is where this topic gets really weird. But let me know what you guys think. And if you're new, would love to have you guys make sure and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and would love some support if you like this video. So like the video and leave a comment. Want to hear what you say. Share this if you think somebody could be of benefit or enjoy it. Okay, guys, that's it for me here. Take care. Lots of love, lots of blessings. Until the next video, as always, I'm giving everybody hugs, mwah, kisses, stay safe. And as always, guys, your girl. We'll see you soon. Bye.